Despite the recent market turmoil, the S&P 500 is hovering just 4% below all-time highs as we approach the halfway point in 2019. Our Bob Pisani is live from the New York Stock Exchange with more on the market's biggest winners. Hey, Bob.
Hello, Melissa. You know, the S&P is still up 13% this year, but it's come off its historic high of several weeks ago, as you mentioned, as trade issues with China are once again the single largest source of downside risk to the markets. And take a look here. This year's percentage leaders are a very diverse group. It's really not represented by any particular sector. Some are merger related. So Anadarko, for example, that's up on the Occidental deal. Some are market leaders in their own particular space. So, for example, cosmetics giant Coty is rallying on good earnings and a very strong e-commerce platform. And by the way, a very heavy short base there that's leading to some short covering recently. Hess is one of the very few strong performers in energy this year, but it's got a new pipeline of low-cost discoveries, very critical, particularly in Guyana, that it's going to fuel oil production growth for them over the next decade. Chipotle, recovering from its food safety incidents of last year, it's been outperforming, though, other fast casual restaurants on superior management, that simple menu, pleasing restaurant designs, and some very strong digital efforts that seem to be paying off. Finally, perennially challenged Xerox. This is just a tough, lousy business. It's imaging equipment. It's been in structural decline for years as the workplace has become more digital and rivals like Hewlett-Packard and Canon grow their market share. That's been a very big issue, but the company's earnings have been growing. They're up 30% year over year in the last earnings report, Melissa, and they're one of the most aggressive buyers of their own stock out there anywhere in the S&P. They've reduced their shares outstanding by about 30% since 2012, and Melissa, that makes them a buyback monster in my book. Back to you.
All right, Bob. Thank you, Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange. Tim, do you like any of these market leaders?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if you have a case where you look for stocks to continue to perform in an environment where growth is challenged, I mean, I think you have to kind of stay with what's been working. So, ultimately, I think you want to find EPS growth in the tech sector, and that's probably where we go.
Yeah. Mark, how about you?
Not really. I mean, I talked about Coty last week, so Coty's one I'd be staying away from. I think their debt levels are way too high. They're at like 5.8 times net debt to EBITDA. They're really struggling in that mass consumer market. Bringing on P&G's beauty business with CoverGirl. I just think it's kind of a situation that's not really going to work well for them.
Hess has had a huge move, and it trades at a big valuation. But if you look, maybe they've turned things around. Now, you say 35 times forward earnings, that's crazy. Yeah, but I don't think it's a valuation play. It's maybe they've actually figured it out after a decade of floundering. So I think out of all the names he mentioned, Hess might be the most interesting one.
All right, well, Coty and Hess and the rest of the S&P 500 high flyers aren't the only names tearing it up in 2019. The Chartmaster says there are two overlooked names that may be about to fall to earth after a soaring start to the year. Carter Worth's over at the Plasma to break it all down. Hey, Carter.
Hi. So just picking on two names that have been impervious to all things, just classic idiosyncratic growth names, but they seem a little hot, a little ahead of themselves. Names that you might know: Planet Fitness, one of the fastest growing sort of workout joints, if you will, to put it in a not very pleasant way. And then Wingstop, it speaks for itself. They sell wings. 2-year charts, this is an incredible kind of thing. Great runs are what they are, but they have setbacks, and sometimes they have end of the great run. Now, just to put this in context, let's look at this compared to, well, the mighty Microsoft and Visa. You're talking about stocks that have doubled and tripled both these great winners, which they in turn have tripled the performance of the NASDAQ. So just in a 2-year period, a lot of money's been drawn in, and I think they're a little hot. And at a minimum, if one's long, take some profits, and then with a little fortitude, get short. Now, Wall Street, of course, is a cheerleader kind of thing. Very few stocks are rated sells. And you see it here for Planet Fitness. They're all buys. There are 3 holds. Hold is a euphemism for sell, means wink, wink, sell. But there are no outright sells. You don't want to offend the bankers. This speaks for itself. Let's go on to what we see here for Planet Fitness. The average price target is $79.08, but it closed Friday at $80. So even though no one's got to sell, the current price target for 12 years out is below where it is now. Well, how about the next one? So Planet Fitness, where could it go? At a minimum, I think you check back to trend. So the betting here is that we're going to get this, that, brings you somewhere down in here. And then for Wingstop, 8 buys, actually a sell there, 7 holds, so a little less euphoric, but still the principle is the same. And here too, average price target is 77. It closed Friday at 79. So according to the street, it's supposed to be a buy, but it's supposed to go lower. All a little bit muddled. Wingstop. The betting is we come down to trend. And so if that's the bet, let's put in our arrows and make that bet. I would trim them both if you're long, or buy puts, do something.
All right, Carter, come on over to the desk. Lizzie's going to bring the chair in. Evan is out today.
Evan's
so
out.
Lizzie is here.
Right. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you, Lizzie. Just in case you at home are wondering where Evan was. All right, so you don't like Wingstop, you don't like Planet Fitness, but how about some of the names that Bob had mentioned that also had strong starts to the year? Hess, Cody, Anadarko,
each one's different.
Chipotle.
Cody's a stock that was being priced for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Right, and it's come off the bottom because of prospective deals or some sort of sale and so forth. I think the thing about these two stocks, just in particular, is that we know that fads take on a life of their own. The restaurant business probably is a disaster. There have been all sorts of things like Boston Chicken and Kosi, and think about the other names, Einstein Bagels and Ruby's. It goes on. Basically, they get very popular. Kona Grill, Noodles and Company, Benihana. It goes on.
Wow.
And then
Listen to you. He's just...
And then what happens? They all fall down to earth. It's very hard to get into the pantheon of the restaurant business. That would be, of course, Starbucks, McDonald's, and a few others. Basically, Chipotle. So the fad can go for a long time, but it never goes forever. And then the gym thing, I mean, it's the same.
Hey, I'm just going to switch gears because I'm not interested in either of those names. What about a Cisco that had this monster rally last week? Okay, it sold off with the S&P over the last couple of weeks, but then they had news and they gave better guidance than people expected and had a huge rally on volume. Do you want to buy a stock like that in a market like this that's feeling maybe a little dicey right here on any pullback?
Well, so Cisco has the trajectory of the market. It bottomed on the 24th. It peaked. It drew down 11%, and then it gapped on its earnings, just what you're, and now it's pulled back. All things held equal, I'd rather have something that just gapped up on its earnings than something that didn't.
I want to just quickly mention, so Wingstop, I've never been, and
You should never go. I can just tell you it would be bad for your health. I'm just telling you that.
And that's fair, and I
Because you have a
appreciate the
delicate
warning.
constitution.
But, you know, this weekend was the Preakness Stakes in Baltimore. Carter's aware. And sometimes you don't bet on the horse, you bet on the jockey. Guy, what's your
What are you
point?
talking about? Thank you.
I'll mention my point. Now, who has gotten CMG right, Chipotle?
Not me.
None of
Not
us.
me.
But Nicole Miller-Regan at Piper Jaffray.
Yeah.
Spot on. Why do we mention that guy? I'm glad you asked, because she just initiated Wingstop with a buy and an $88 price target. If you look at their quarter, very strong. Comps almost double what the street was looking for. Maybe she's onto something. So as much as I love CBW, and I do.
On Wingstop.
It can go, but it's just, think about Shake Shack. They almost all end the same way. It's in tatters on the floor.